boys and girls, it's Mrs. O'Shea from the Jellyfish class, and today we're going to do a little science experiment about sink and float. So, sink and float, I wonder what that means. Sink means that it goes to the bottom. Float means it's going to stay on top. So today, my students went around our classroom and they came up with some items that they thought would work well. So we went through and we decided which items we thought would sink to the bottom or float, stay on top. So let's see if you agree. They said this block would sink. They said the feather would float. They said the crayon would sink. They said the fuzzball would float. They said the straw would float and the spoon would sink. They said the noodle would float, but this crazy little bear would sink. They said the magnetic number would float, and so would the heart button. So let's see if what they predicted really happens. All right, what do you think? Should we start with the sink items or the float? Remember, sink goes to the bottom and float stays on top. You want to start with sink? Okay, so let's start with this piece of wood. You make your own guess. Do you think my class was right and this piece of wood or block will float or sink? They said sink. Let's see. Do you see what happens? That block is actually staying on top. So did it sink? No, it floated. So we're gonna put this over in the float section. Oh, let's go with the crayon. My student said that this would sink. Let's see. Were they right? They were. It's stuck at the bottom. Next, let's try the spoon. My student said it would sink. Is it sinking or floating? You're right, it's floating. So we're gonna move that to the float side. What about this crazy little bear? They said it would sink. Let's try it out. They were right. It sank to the bottom. So not bad. We figured out two that sank to the bottom. Now let's go to what my students thought would float. They said the feather would float. They're right. It floats. I'm going to leave it over here in the float section. They said the fuzzball would float. They were, uh-oh. What happened? I thought for sure we were going to be right on this one that it would float, but guess what happened? It sunk. I wonder why. Here's a hint. See if you figure out why. All right, here's the button. They said it would float. Are they right? They are. Next comes the straw. I think they're right on that one. Another float. Here's the noodle. Uh-oh, did that one sink or float? It's at the bottom. You're right, it sank. We need to move this one over here. And last but not least, the letter N. My student said it would float. Let's see. Look, they're right. I wonder if you were right as much as they were. We're gonna put it on the float side. And now let's see, our items did more sink or float? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 floated. 1, 2, 3, 4 sank to the bottom. So I think more of the items floated than sank. This is just a fun experiment kind of activity that you can do at home with anything. All you need is a container of water, some items that you find around the house, and then make a prediction on whether you think those items will sink or float. Then test it.